We are very lucky to have Heather Fobert here. Heather has been at URI working for Extension and in the Department of Plant Sciences and Entomology for a long time. I won't say how long, but she is the director of our plant protection clinic, which those of you who have interacted either with the hotline or in a commercial capacity may have crossed paths with her in that regard. She's also a tremendously skilled educator and knows a lot about plant diseases and a lot of other things. Tonight, she's going to talk to us about a really cool project she's been working on, and I'll leave the about it to her. But we are in for a treat, and so she'll talk for about 25 minutes or so. We can take a couple questions, and then we're going to move on. Without further ado, Heather, thank you again for being here. We really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to be here with you guys. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you guys about saffron. Actually, when I was putting together this talk, I was like, oh, this is fun. Much more fun than talking about blights and new pest problems, which is what I'm usually talking about. So I'm going to be talking about growing saffron in Rhode Island, in southern New England. And this project is paid for, and for me anyway, through Northeast SARE, which is SARE stands for Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. I'm the Rhode Island State Coordinator for SARE. And then also there's funding for a saffron project from through DEM, Rhode Island DEM. So I got into the saffron because there's been a lot of interest in growing saffron lately. Since 2015 at the University of Vermont, they've had a North American Saffron Center for Research and Development, something like that. North American Center for Saffron Research and Development since 2015. And they've really shown us like, wow, we can grow saffron in the Northeast. So I had to put his name down. Arash, that's his last name right there. My fourth bullet is a postdoc at the University of Vermont working for Margaret Skinner. She's a professor there. And if you're really interested in growing saffron, I really encourage you to join the UVM listserv. They have a saffron net listserv, and you get, there's like over 700 people on this listserv, and there's great discussions about growing saffron. If you're also welcome to join my URI email group. I have just about, I forget how many people, 50 people that are interested in growing saffron, mostly in Rhode Island. And so I have a little listserv, and haven't sent out an email lately, but I send out some emails there as well. So my SARE project is actually to work with educators, people that work with farmers, called ag service providers. So I educate growers, but then also people that might work with growers. And that's what my SARE project is. And I don't train these guys. These guys have been training me, but I work with Rebecca Brown, who you've probably seen, Dr. Rebecca Brown before. And then her postdoc is Faree. Dr. Gresham is Faree, and he's been working with Rebecca since 2015, I think it is. So Faree has grew saffron in Iran for 12 years. And then for the past 5 years, he's been growing saffron in Rhode Island and doing research with saffron at URI. And then, so after learning more about saffron, I think, as I said, I got into it to work with commercial growers and then also ag service providers. But the more I learn about growing saffron, the more I think that the most people that are going to grow it are going to be hobbyists. And what a fun hobby it is. It is. I love plants. I love growing plants, but there's something about growing saffron that is just exhilarating. So saffron, you might know, is the most expensive spice in the world. It's the actual spice is the stigmas. Or here you can see 3 stigmas that make up the pistil of each flower. So it's the dried stigmas that is that is actual saffron, the spice that we consume. So it's a crocus flower, a crocus sativus. So it's of this special species of crocus. So the spring crocuses that we see blooming, there's several different species that grow, and actually there's like hundreds of species of crocus. But the saffron that is the spice is a fall blooming saffron, and there are some other fall blooming crocuses besides the saffron crocus, and some are poisonous. So you really, just because it's a fall blooming crocus does not mean it's edible, but they're all in the lily family. So saffron is an upside down crop. That's the way I think about it. You plant the corms in July to September, or sort of, if you're ordering them, it's kind of as soon as you get them, you plant them. And then the flowers, the blooms are present from mid-October to November, about 21 days, sometime between mid-October and November. And then the plants grow through the winter. They stay green all winter long. And then they go dormant in the summertime, and the leaves die completely back. So this picture here was taken on October 19th. This is 2020. And you can see all the little leaves of the crocus have sprouted, and the plants are just starting to flower. As I said, you plant the corms as soon as you get them, and you need to plant them pretty deep, like 6 to 8 inches deep. If they're not deep enough, they can freeze, and you don't want that happening. You don't want the bulbs freezing. So you need to get them deep enough, 6 to 8 inches. And I was always like, a corm versus a bulb, what's the difference? And so I know that you guys are curious about that too. So I just thought I'd let you know that bulbs, most things are bulbs, and they have layers, like this picture here on the left side. This is of an onion. And so bulbs have layers, where corms are solid. They're more solid. They've got the bud here, and then also buds can form on the outside. Now these obviously are cut in half. So bulbs have layers, and corms are pretty solid. So back to planting. So you want to plant these corms into well-drained soil. There's not really a lot of requirements. Yes, you want organic matter in there, but you don't want the soil too wet. But there's a large range of pH, 5 to 8 pH. It's a huge range. You want to plant corms that are pretty good size, the size of a walnut or larger. It's like each corm is about 0.2 ounces. And as I said, plant 6 to 8 inches deep. You can plant kind of any, there's a wide range for how many corms you would plant per square foot. So between 4 and 12. You really don't need to water the corms. I mean, unless it's super, super dry. But ordinarily, if you just have them outside, you don't need to water them. There could be a problem with getting too much water. So I have mine in a raised bed that can just help with drainage. You also need to keep the plants weed free, and you can fertilize when you plant the corms. I haven't fertilized mine yet. I've only had them a couple of years, but they don't need a lot. So as I said, you plant, at the end of the summer, and then starting in late September, early October, the little shoots come out of the ground. They look just like, in another couple of weeks, we're going to have crocuses coming up here, and they look just the same. So here a little bit further along, and then here's some flowers. So as I said, they bloom from mid-October to mid-November. And this is one of Farie's pictures. The best looking pictures in this presentation are ones I've gotten from Farie. He's very artistic. And so while the plants are blooming, you need to harvest them. You go out every morning and harvest the flowers. They need to be harvested every single day. And this is a picture of Farie just sort of pinches right below the flower. And then also the same day that you harvest, you need to process the flowers. And by process, that means separating the stigmas from the rest of the flowers. This is rather labor intensive, depending on how many flowers you have, of course. Also, for most instances, you just discard the petals and the stamens. Perhaps you want to do something with them. They are beautiful. And there are people that try and do things with the petals and the stamens also. As I said, it takes a lot of time. Free is incredibly fast. To just watch him, I had to get these pictures. I had to have him keep doing it and I had to say, slow down, stop. Let me try and take pictures of what you're doing. He can process 3,000 flowers in 8 hours, and that's incredibly fast. It also just lets you know if you planted a lot of saffron and you get a lot of flowers, that's a lot of time processing. And then also the same day that you get the stigmas, you need to dry them. Up here on top, this is my Snack Master Junior that I got, I think, in 1981. And this is what I did in 2020 when I dried my stigmas. This is what I used, and it worked great. Furry uses this commercial dehydrator here. He likes to dry them at 95 degrees for 8 to 12 hours. Now, Arash from the University of Vermont, he did some research and he likes drying the stigmas at 210 degrees for 7 to 10 minutes. So a huge range in drying. This past year, I used my kitchen oven set at 200 degrees and I was drying them for like 9 minutes. So it's how things are dried, how the stigmas are dried affects the different chemical levels that are in the saffron. And then once it's dried, the saffron should be stored for a couple of months before using. So I haven't used any of the saffron that I harvested in 2021 yet. So I don't know how my saffron from 2020 is going to compare to my 2021 yet in flavor. So this is so that you'll memorize these numbers, but I wanted to let you know that in 2020, Rebecca Brown sent off 2 samples of URI saffron to this American Herbal Pharmacopoeia. And this guy, Roy, had them analyzed, and there were 42 different samples. And this is a whole 42, and then they were ranked. And as you can see, Rebecca Brown's was rated number 1 out of these 44 samples, the saffron from 2019. And then also the ones that she sent in 2 samples also from 2018, and that came in very high as well, 7th, even though it was, an extra year old. And so Roy said, over here on the left side, your 2019 material was the highest yielding, and your 2018, not that much less, showing relative stability. Whatever you are doing right. So you can see, these samples are from Iran, many places in the U.S. On this last page, Spain, and so anyway, we can grow great saffron, or at least Furry can grow great saffron. Getting back to growing it, we've had snow in New England, and it does not seem to bother the plants at all. So this was last week on my plot. But starting in April, the plants start to senesce, and as I said, by the beginning of June, all the leaves are brown. Corms live for just 1 year, and so in this way, the corms kind of grow themselves out of the soil, because each year the daughter corms grow on top of the mother corms, so they kind of grow themselves out in just a few years. That's really one of the reasons why you need to plant them so deeply, so that you can leave them, hopefully 3 years or so before you need to dig up the corms. So, because that is a lot of work. So as I said, every few years, the corms need to be dug up. If you're a hobbyist and this is one of your raised beds, or you have even like 500 corms, it's a big job, but it's doable. If you're a commercial grower and you need to dig up, half an acre of these, in the summertime when you're trying to maybe grow something else, it is a huge job. So they get dug in the summertime, and then you can either plant them right away, going down 6 to 8 inches again, or you can store them and plant them in September. This is Margaret Skinner from the University of Vermont. They devised this, this box with chicken wire or hardware cloth at the bottom, and they shake it. They put it, shovelfuls of soil in there and shake it to make the soil fall out so they can collect the corms. It's a lot of work. So there are some pest problems, but not that many, really. Probably the biggest problem is with animals. Voles in the wintertime really like to feed on the corms. Deer and rabbits like to feed on the above ground parts. Also, I had mentioned before that the corms don't want to be too wet, that you can have problems with rot if the corms are too wet. So you need well-drained soil. And weed, you really need to keep the plot weed free. At URI, this is our saffron plot here, and we've got chicken wire around here that goes down into the soil, I think about 8 inches or so, 6 to 8 inches, to stop any tunneling voles from coming in. At my property, I'm kind of lazy. And so what I did was I just took tomato, what are they called? Those tomato towers. I can't think of what they're called. And I just lay them down on top of my saffron plants, and I cover them with bird netting. I hate the birding netting stuff. It's a pain in the neck to use. And I really don't even think it would work as well as, it's not working as well as what we've got at URI, but I haven't had problems. So here you can see my cages. That's what they're called, tomato cages. Again, you can see it here better in the snow, what it looks like. So in 2020, as I said, that was my first time growing saffron. And the first day that I got a flower, I ran out and harvested the flower. I was so excited. The next day I went out, and the 2 flowers that were there were eaten by something. And the soil was dug up by, I don't know if it was the same animal or something else. And so that's when I put the tomato cages down and put the bird netting, over the top or around the outside, hoping to keep things out. And since then, I've done pretty well and have not had problems. Again, the hardware cloth is a better way to do it. And the saffron should be weed free. This is my little plot, and I use pine needles. At URI, we really mostly use the bare ground. Also, another beautiful picture from Furry. Thank you, Furry. So let me tell you a little bit about the research at URI. Here I'm saying that the plants need to be weed free, but we're growing basil on top of the plants. And so the idea is, if you're growing in a small area, you can have the corms in the ground. And during the summertime, when really there's nothing happening with the corms, you can grow a short season crop on top, as long as it doesn't interfere with the saffron plants once they come up. And if it gets planted after the plants are dormant. So we're doing research with basil, and then also using tarps to keep the weeds out of there. There is a problem with the tarps. These black, at least the black side of the tarp, heats up the soil and interferes with flowering. So tarping really is not a very good way to keep the weeds down. And so if growing basil on top, it would keep the weeds down. You would then just harvest them off, and then allow the saffron to come up in the fall. At URI, we might have corms that we can share in July if people are interested. I had hoped to do it this past year in 2021, and we really only produced enough corms for our own research. But hopefully this coming July, I'll have some corms that I can share. And if you're interested in getting some corms, send me an email. My email is real easy to remember, hhf@uri.edu. So yeah, email me if you're interested in getting some corms to try in your own garden. You'll need to pick them up. I'm not shipping anything. And then also, if you want to be on the Rhode Island Saffron email list, send me an email. Last March, we made a video. This is mostly furry, talking about growing saffron and how to grow it. And this is on the URI Cooperative Extension YouTube channel. So you can find this saffron, a new crop for Rhode Island. Again, if you're really interested in growing saffron, you really need to check out the North American Center for Saffron Research and Development at the University of Vermont and join their saffron listserv, their Saffron Net. Also, they've got a conference. They just got advertised over the weekend, an online conference, March 23rd and 30th. And they're two like half-day conferences, cost $55. I did participated in the one last year. It was just fantastic. So much information. So I encourage you to do that. And so thank you. Another beautiful picture from Faree. And there's my email address again. So I look forward to hearing from some of you. Okay. And I was told to include this online survey.
Does anyone have any questions before we let Heather go to eat her dinner? We did have a question from Margaret asking about buying Rhode Island saffron. She said she bought some from Vermont.
So right now, we really don't have any commercial growers.
Okay.
There's somebody who planted a few thousand corms last fall. And so, yeah, I didn't really explain that. You plant in the fall and you get a crop that first year. But most of the corms that we buy are coming from the Netherlands. And there's something that happens with those corms. They're big and they're beautiful, but they don't produce that many flowers the first year. The next year you get flowers. The corms that are produced in North America, in Rhode Island, you get quite a few flowers the very first year. So, which is, much more exciting. As long as they're planted in time, you can get a good crop. So, yeah, so you were asking about buying saffron. So anyway, the one commercial grower that had planted thousands of saffron corms didn't get all that many flowers. He had all Netherland corms. So anyway, well, hopefully there'll be some commercial growers, but I have a hard time really encouraging commercial people, because the idea would be a vegetable grower. At first, I thought this would fit in perfectly for the vegetable crop, because you don't need to do anything in the summer, and then you harvest, once your vegetables are done. But it's that the digging up the corms every few years in the middle of the summer that, for me, I don't see how that really fits in to another vegetable production. Now, if somebody wants to just grow saffron, it might work, but it's a lot of labor. It's a lot of labor. It's why it's a better hobby, I think, than a commercial endeavor.
I wonder if my brain is firing off things. I wonder if people do it in containers where, similar to that contraption, it looked like a compost sifter. You could sift the corms out through the bottom, but I'll do some thinking about that. It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, and there's problems with containers is you would need to keep them, like if you just have them in containers, they're going to freeze in the wintertime, and you need to have them in the sun. You need to have light. So, and then also in containers, I think you might have more of a rodent problem. You just wouldn't really need to take care of the rodents. But it is fun. I encourage anybody that likes plants, and I have a feeling there's a few of you there. It's a fun thing to grow.
Sue Scotty had 24 corms and 5 flowers last year. That's like me. I had 5 peanut plants that yielded 18 peanuts, and I was so proud of it. It was, yeah. Tracy's asking what the main benefit of saffron is, and Diane shared that it's very powerful. You only need a very little bit to add flavor to food. Any other
Right.
benefits, Heather?
Well, there's a lot of medicinal. There's a lot of people looking at it, and I think that it's verified science. Like it's good for eye health. I should know better, but medicinally, they're really looking at it, thinking that it's a good product. And if somebody wanted to do it commercially, I think there's a lot of opportunities for what's called value added product. So rather than just selling saffron, you would then be selling saffron soap or saffron candles or body lotion, or I don't know what else, because the color is amazing. It's yeah, and for dyes, it's beautiful colors, and it just yeah, and I mean it tastes good too. It's fun. My husband loves it, absolutely loves it. So
That works out well. Well,
that
thank
worked,
you
yeah.
very much. This was really, I've heard this talk a couple times in different iterations, and it's fascinating. And I'm on Team Corm, so see if I can get
Okay,
my hands on them. Thank you very much, Heather, from
okay.
everyone on mute.